They say every highway has a ghost. But what if the ghost has a house? My name is Daniel Mercer. I wasn't looking for horror. I was looking for a home. I found both, on Highway 66. The first time I saw the house, it was late afternoon, the kind of pale golden light that makes everything seem almost safe, even when it shouldn't. The realtor, a woman named Carol with a smile too wide to be genuine, had said it was a fixer-upper with history. She didn't lie about the history. She just didn't tell me the right kind. My wife, Emily, was the practical one. She saw the cracked windows, the ivy swallowing the porch, the leaning mailbox that looked like it was about to give up. But I saw something else, a chance to start over. After my job loss and our city apartment lease expiring, the house on Highway 66 was cheap, isolated, and big enough for our 2 kids, Mia and Ben. It felt like a second chance wrapped in dust and silence. We moved in on a cloudy Thursday. The moving truck rattled up the cracked driveway, its tires crunching over gravel that hadn't been turned in years. There was a stillness to the place, not peaceful, but watchful. The trees that lined the property leaned in too close, as if they were trying to whisper secrets about the house. Inside, the air was stale. Old wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. Every step echoed. But beneath it all, there was structure, there was potential, and for me, there was a story. I'm a writer, or at least I was before bills started piling up. Emily told me maybe this place would inspire me. She didn't know how right she'd be. That first night, we unpacked only the essentials, sheets, dishes, and a box of toys. The kids were restless, complaining about the smell. I told them it was just old wood, but there was something else mixed in, a faint sweetness, like decaying flowers. I ignored it. Around midnight, as Emily and I lay in bed, I heard it, a creaking from the hallway. Not just the groaning of old timber, but measured, deliberate footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Pacing. I sat up, heart pounding, and whispered, "Did you hear that?" Emily murmured that it was probably the house settling, but even she didn't sound convinced. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the hall. The air was colder there. I swept the beam along the faded wallpaper, over the pictures we hadn't yet replaced. At the end of the hallway was a door I hadn't noticed before, one that didn't appear on the house's floor plan. It was narrow, painted over several times, but the outline of the handle showed through. Something about it didn't feel right. I reached for the knob, but before I could turn it, I heard a whisper from behind me. Clear as a bell, a woman's voice said, "Don't wake them." I spun around. The hallway was empty. The next morning, I told Emily what happened. She brushed it off, said I was exhausted. But later that day, as I worked on fixing a broken window, I saw Mia standing in the front yard, staring at the woods. I called out to her, but she didn't move. When I got closer, I saw she was holding something, a small, porcelain doll in a tattered dress. It was filthy, its face cracked. "Where'd you find that?" I asked. She pointed toward the trees. "She gave it to me." "Who's she, honey?" "The lady in the window." I turned toward the house. On the second floor, behind a curtain of dust, was a faint outline of a figure, tall, motionless, watching us. When I ran inside, the room upstairs was empty. No footprints, no dust disturbed. But the window latch was open, even though I could have sworn I locked every one of them. That night, I dreamed of the door in the hallway again. This time, it wasn't painted shut. It was wide open, and from the darkness inside came that same whisper, "They're not yours." I woke up gasping, my hands shaking. Emily was asleep beside me. The moonlight through the window stretched across the floor, landing right on our bedroom door, which was open. And on the floor, just beyond the threshold, lay the doll. Only now, its eyes were gone. For the first few days, I told myself it was just nerves. New house, new town, new ghosts in my imagination. But when you've got a daughter who talks about a lady in the window and a doll that moves rooms on its own, you start wondering if imagination is just another word for denial. Emily was doing her best to stay calm, but I could tell she was shaken. I'd catch her staring at the second-floor landing, where the paint bubbled like skin about to blister. Every time she passed the hallway, she'd quicken her pace. Something about that door unsettled her, even though I hadn't told her what I'd seen, or heard. On the third night, the storm hit. Thunder cracked across the highway, and the power flickered until it finally died. The house groaned with the wind. I went to check on Mia and Ben. They were both asleep, their small faces pale in the glow of my flashlight. That's when I noticed it, the draft. Cold air seeped through the hallway like the breath of something ancient. It was coming from behind that sealed door. I held my breath and pressed my hand against the wood. It pulsed faintly, as if something inside was breathing back. The whisper came again, low and soft, like silk dragged across broken glass. "They don't belong here." The door rattled. Not violently, just enough to make my stomach twist. I grabbed a screwdriver from my toolbox and started scraping at the layers of paint. The smell that came out was unbearable, mold, dust, and something sweet, like rotting fruit. When the latch finally gave, the door creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase spiraling downwards, disappearing into pitch black. I shouldn't have gone down. But I did. The steps were wooden, warped, damp. The deeper I went, the colder the air became, until my breath hung white in front of me. The smell grew stronger, chokingly sweet. At the bottom was a single room lit by an old, hanging bulb that flickered to life just as my foot touched the last step. And then I saw them drawings. Hundreds of them, covering every inch of the walls. Children's drawings, scrawled in crayon and charcoal, stick figures with hollow eyes, a woman in a long dress, a crooked house surrounded by black trees. In the center of the room stood a small wooden crib. Inside was a yellowed blanket and a single name carved into the side, Lucy. The moment I read it, the bulb exploded. Glass rained down, and I was plunged into darkness. Something moved behind me, soft footsteps. I turned, fumbling for my flashlight, but before I could turn it on, I felt a hand touch my shoulder. Cold. Small. Like a child's. Then the whisper again, but this time closer. Right in my ear. "She said you'd come back." I bolted up the stairs, slamming the door shut behind me. Emily found me sitting against it, drenched in sweat, shaking. When I told her what I saw, she stared at me for a long time before saying, "Lucy Mercer." "Daniel, that was your grandmother's name." I didn't remember ever telling her that. When I finally gathered the courage to go back down, the door wouldn't open. Not even a millimeter. It was as if it had fused back into the wall. Mia refused to sleep in her room anymore. She said the lady stood at her door every night, whispering things she couldn't understand. Ben started sleepwalking, wandering the halls at odd hours. Emily caught him once, trying to open the locked basement door while whispering the same word over and over. "Lucy. Lucy." I tried researching the property. Turns out, the house wasn't always a home. It was built in 1938 by a man named Franklin Hale, a preacher who lost his wife and daughter in a fire that burned half the property. Locals said he rebuilt the house exactly as it was, down to the very nail. He lived there alone until he disappeared one winter. They never found a body. But here's the thing, in an archived police report from 1947, there's a note. A line scrawled by the responding officer. It said, "Found a child's crib in the basement." Carved name, Lucy Hale. That night, as I sat in my study trying to make sense of it, I heard laughter echoing down the hall, Mia's laughter. Only, when I went to check, she was fast asleep. And on her nightstand, where the doll used to sit, was something new. A photograph. Faded, sepia-toned, showing a family of 4 standing in front of our house. The father looked stern. The mother's smile was cracked. And between them stood a little girl holding a porcelain doll. Her name was written on the back in delicate cursive. Lucy, summer, 1939. For a few days after the photograph appeared, I tried to keep life as normal as possible. Breakfast at 7, school at 8, bedtime at 9. Routine, I thought, might keep the house from noticing us. But houses like that, they feed on routine. They wait for you to get comfortable, to convince yourself that what you saw wasn't real. Then they whisper just loud enough to remind you that it was. The first whisper came from the living room wall. I was working at my desk when I heard it, faint, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails brushing the plaster. At first, I thought it was a mouse, but when I pressed my ear against the wall, the sound changed. It wasn't scratching anymore, it was breathing. Then came the words. Soft. Layered. Dozens of voices tangled together, murmuring from inside the walls. He's here, she brought him back. I stumbled back, heart hammering. Emily came running from the kitchen, asking what was wrong. But when I told her, she just looked at me with that same weary disbelief that had started to grow between us. Later that night, while I was putting Ben to bed, he said something that made the hair rise on the back of my neck. Dad, the lady says the house remembers you. I froze. What lady, Ben? He pointed toward the ceiling. The one who talks through the walls. She says you were here before. The next morning, I tore through the county records. Every deed, every transfer, every inspection. There was nothing connecting me, or my family, to this house. Until I found a line buried in a faded census ledger from 1940, Mercer, Daniel, age 4. Resident, Highway 66. I thought it had to be a coincidence. A name mix-up. But deep down, something in me cracked open, a memory, maybe. A flash of a red tricycle. The sound of humming. The smell of smoke. That night, the house stopped pretending. At 2 in the morning, Emily shook me awake. The baby monitor, though both our kids were fast asleep, was filled with static. And underneath the hiss, a voice whispered. He's awake now. The floorboards creaked. The temperature dropped so fast I could see my breath. I grabbed the flashlight and went to the hallway, where that sealed door used to be. Only now, it wasn't sealed anymore. The paint had peeled back, the latch gleamed, and the smell, the sickly sweet rot, was thick enough to taste. Emily begged me not to open it, but something in me had to. Like the house was calling for me by name. When the door swung open, the stairs were gone. Instead, there was a narrow corridor stretching far longer than the foundation should allow. The walls pulsed with a dull red glow, like light filtering through flesh. And as I stepped inside, the whispers began again, louder now, more desperate. Don't forget us, Daniel. You promised. You left us. I don't remember how long I walked. Minutes, hours, it didn't matter. The corridor ended at a wooden door, half-rotted, with that same name carved deep into it, Lucy. When I reached for the handle, a child's giggle echoed behind me. I turned, and saw Mia standing there, barefoot, her nightgown soaked as if she'd been walking in rain. Mia? What are you doing here? I whispered. But it wasn't Mia's voice that answered. She's not here anymore. Then she smiled, and her mouth filled with dirt. The walls screamed. I ran, dragging myself back through the hallway, through the red light, until I fell into the living room. The door slammed shut behind me, sealing itself again with layers of cracked paint. Emily rushed to me, eyes wide with terror. She'd been trying to wake me for hours, she said. Hours. But I hadn't been asleep. For the next few days, the whispers didn't stop. They crawled through the pipes, hummed behind the wallpaper, and sometimes, on the edge of sleep, I heard them say my name like a lullaby. Even the photographs began to change. In one, our family portrait warped overnight, the shadows behind us deepened, and where my daughter should have been, there was now a small girl in a white dress holding the doll. The same doll I'd buried in the woods 2 nights before. Emily wanted to leave, but I couldn't. Something bound me there. Every time I packed, every time I tried to start the car, the engine wouldn't turn. The air would thicken. And once, I swear I saw a figure in the rearview mirror, a man in a preacher's coat, smiling through a mouth full of ash. That night, I sat in my study and played the old tape recorder I'd found in the basement weeks earlier. It clicked and hissed before a voice came through, a man's voice, ragged and trembling. "Forgive me, Lord." I sealed her away so she'd stop crying. But the house won't forget. Then came a child's sob. Then silence. The next morning, I woke to find every door in the house open. The wind howled through the corridors, and on every mirror, written in condensation, was a single word. Stay. And for the first time, I realized it wasn't a warning. It was a command. The night after the mirrors spelled stay, I stopped pretending we could. I packed everything we owned into the car, boxes, photos, even the doll. I didn't dare leave it behind. Emily didn't argue this time. Her eyes were hollow. She'd stopped sleeping, stopped eating. The kids barely spoke. The house had drained the light out of all of us. But when I turned the ignition, nothing happened. The headlights flickered once, then died. The keys felt heavy in my hand, as if something didn't want to let them go. That's when we saw her. At the edge of the driveway, in the cold fog that rolled off the highway, stood the little girl in the white dress, Lucy. Her head tilted, her hair dripping as though she'd just climbed out of a river. She was smiling. Not cruelly, almost sadly. Like she pitied us. Emily whispered, "Daniel, she's not real." But she was. I could see her reflection in the car window. And in that reflection, I noticed something else. The house behind us, it wasn't just standing there anymore. It was breathing. The windows fogged over. The porch boards heaved. The front door swelled outward as if something inside was pressing to get out. Then the whisper returned, louder than ever before, 100 voices at once. "You can't leave. You never left." The house lit up from within, an orange glow that spread like fire behind the walls. But it wasn't fire. It was memory. Suddenly, I remembered. I was 4 years old. I'd lived here before. My mother, Lucy Mercer, had brought me to this house after my father died. She said it was a safe place. But one night, she went into the basement and never came back. The preacher next door found me wandering the woods at dawn, whispering her name over and over. They said the fire that took the house wasn't an accident. I stumbled out of the car, shouting into the fog, "What do you want from me?" The girl, Lucy, lifted her hand and pointed at the house. Then she said, clear as the wind, "You promised you'd set us free." And before I could move, the front door burst open. The same red light from the hidden hallway poured out, spilling across the ground like liquid. I could see figures in it, shadows of children, dozens of them, faces pale, eyes hollow. And behind them, a man's silhouette. The preacher. His mouth moved, but his voice came from everywhere at once. "One must stay, so the rest can leave." Emily screamed as the air thickened. Mia clung to her leg, crying, "Daddy, make it stop." And I knew then, this wasn't about us leaving. It was about the house letting go. The walls cracked open, spilling fire and light. The wind roared like a hurricane. I ran toward the front porch, into the blaze, calling out Lucy's name. Inside, the red corridor was back. At the end, the door marked Lucy was wide open. I stepped through. Inside was the same nursery I'd seen in my vision, the crib, the blanket, the faint scent of lavender and ash. In the corner sat my mother, her hair blackened, her dress burned at the edges. She looked up at me with eyes too kind for what she'd become. "You came back," she said softly. "Now you can end it." The floor trembled. The walls screamed. She held out the doll, the same one that had followed us since the day we moved in. "Burn it," she whispered. "It's her heart. It's the house." I took the doll. Its porcelain cracked under my grip. I felt something moving inside it, like a heartbeat. When I threw it into the fire that had started creeping along the floorboards, the house howled. Every door flew open, every light burst. The shadows shrieked as if being torn from the walls. Emily's voice echoed faintly from somewhere behind me, calling my name. But I couldn't move. The fire climbed higher, wrapping around me like hands. Then, just before everything went white, I saw them. Lucy, the children, even my mother, standing together in the flames, smiling. Free. When I woke up, it was morning. The house was gone, just a charred foundation on the side of Highway 66. Emily and the kids were safe, standing by the car, watching the smoke drift into the pale dawn. The fire chief said it looked like the place had been burning for hours, but that was impossible. There hadn't been a house there for decades. We left that day and never looked back. But sometimes, late at night, when the highway's quiet and the radio loses signal, I swear I hear a whisper beneath the static. "Thank you, Daniel." And somewhere, far down the road, a little girl's laughter fades into the wind.